what are some of the other lessons you took from just kind of observing behaviors when you were in managing that nightclub at 19?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons, and it's less about behavior, but it really taught me that volume was everything.
Right.
And I think I learned that like there is margin in food and drink, but if you're not doing enough volume for that margin to meet your costs and then become profitable, it doesn't matter what your prices are. It doesn't matter what your costs are. There's not enough people coming through the door and spending. And there was two pretty valuable lessons. One was this idea that you had to bring people in early and start the night, and that was really important. That's a really e-club focused piece. But another piece was when I started managing the club, I really found out that because it takes some time to get it at full capacity, it was never really big enough to be at full capacity for long enough to make enough money. And one of the big changes that I made, I was studying law at the time, so I'd always put my little thought you pretty much think you're a lawyer while you're at law school. I haven't thought of myself as a lawyer since, but for sure. I went through a planning permission with the council and had to get someone to come and survey, check how many toilets there are, blah blah blah. I think I'm going back a while now, but we might have increased the top from 115 people.
So when you say the top, that's
the top level, top level, the capacity in that level.
Oh,
the amount of people. The amount of people that were.
Yeah.
So, I assume it's similar in the UK. Licensing for licensed venues, everyone can have so many people in that venue, mandated by whatever the licensing authority is.
Yeah.
Jesse, you've got a capacity if you're a 200-person nightclub, 500-person nightclub. I think we're about 115 initially, but at 115, it always felt like there was space there. Went through this planning permission. I think we got it to 175 maybe. And the difference that makes if you're full is huge. The amount of extra people that you can have in there drinking, it just makes such a massive difference. And then it changes the whole way you think about the cost base. You actually then, it flips from like, how do I save money here and there to make them profit? It's like, how do I now get more people in for more time? And we often see sometimes when you get too focused on the cost side, you sometimes stunt your business by trying to grow more profit, trying to build profit, instead of growing your business by growing the revenue. And it's in the startup space now, we're trying to build businesses in technology. I think the general consensus when you're building a technology business is you get the volume first and then you optimize for your margins later once you're really at capacity.
Yes.
I think if you try and optimize for your margins as you're moving to capacity, you stunt yourself. You might make misses on service. You might make misses on the food.
So specific on that?
You might be trying to optimize. You're doing your roster and you just often understaff because you're trying to cut costs as opposed to being prepared, having a growth mindset where you're thinking, I'm building the business. I'm getting more people in every week. I want to make sure I've got enough people in here to deliver the right level of service, because you want those people to have the experience where they tell other people about it and you grow your business that way.
There's a quote by a guy I mentioned, he's sort of mentor of mine, Rory Sutherland. One of his quotes I love is, at school you can't rewrite the question in an exam, but in business you can. And a lot of his thing is just reframing the question. So you ask a better question, you suddenly have a whole new way of looking at a problem, and then you solve that problem, which with you guys, it's like, I think so many restaurants think, okay, how do we keep costs down? How do we protect margin? And that's why you end up with things like, those sort of, what's it called? They started in COVID, like the QR
code table ordering.
Yeah, it's like, that's great, but fuck me, it ruins the experience. And then fuck me, less people come through the door. And I think one of your superpowers, mate, is being able to reframe the question and then solve a problem in a completely new way.
Totally. And there's a really clear example. And we talk about like the growth mindset as opposed to like the accounting mindset. Like if you go to your accountant at the end of the year to look at how you performed, right? And a lot of restaurants do go, once a year, and that's really when they interrogate the numbers. I think everyone needs to do it more often, but that's sometimes, restaurants are super busy. You don't have time to be in those numbers every day. If you go to the accountant at the end of the year, you might end up with something like, looking at your numbers, your Monday and Tuesday, you're actually losing money. And it could be the case on a variable basis. Their costs of opening were more than the revenue they pulled in.
Yeah.
And the accountant's suggestion will always be time to shut Monday and Tuesday. Right? That's always the suggestion.
Every restaurant now, you can't. My mate's got a tapas bar in Clapham. great. Like on it's a good mate, but we have lock-ins there, like straight out of the thing. It's great fun. But shut Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Because you're still in the lock-in, probably.
Yeah.
You guys got to leave first.
Yeah. To be honest, he doesn't need the E-Club app. He just needs us there every week. But you know, he was saying it's because we can't afford to staff it, and I think it's, as you say, if they were to drop the price using E-Club, people come through the door, and then that solves that problem.
Well, there's two things, and we haven't even told people what E-Club does yet, but there's two things that kind of give you some more basis for that as well. It's like you can't afford staff really depends on, like, this gets talked about in the coffee context in Australia a lot with the cost of coffee going up.
Yeah.
And people saying a barista costs so much money, it's going to increase the price of the coffee by $1 or $1.50. And I'm like, that's totally relative to how many coffees that barista is making an hour. Because there are cafes where the barista might make 10 coffees an hour. There are cafes where he's making 200 coffees an hour. The difference in his cost per coffee is wild, depending on how much volume he does. So it's not like there's the cost, all the input costs are relative to the volume because there is margin in every meal. And then what that leads me to is, how come you've got some days where you're really busy and some days where you're not? And I think this is natural in hospitality. You've got your week that builds to a Friday and Saturday night. And I think traditionally a lot of restaurants have been happy kind of, you know, breaking even or even maybe losing a little bit of money early week and then catching up at the end of the week. We just don't think that has to be the case. And what it suggests is that you've got a product that has perfect product market fit on a Friday and Saturday. And so on Friday and Saturday, you open the doors and people come in. People want to spend money. It's when people drink as well, so you're going to make more money per table, blah, blah, blah. But you're opening with the exact same product on a Tuesday, Wednesday, when people don't want to drink as much. They might not want to spend as much money. You don't have anything different for them. And there are lots of levers you can pull to differentiate your product to find product market fit. We offer one, which is price. I mean, price is
just go through some of those, because I think that's important for context, like lunch menus and shit like that. But like, what else?
Lunch menu. I think understanding the mindset of the customer. During the week, people still often want to buy food, but they might just want to buy the meal and not drink. And you want to create an environment where sometimes you feel comfortable going into a nicer restaurant and having a meal and not drinking and not feeling pressured to drink, for example. That could be one. The lunch menus are a huge one. Having a particular, call the piano man in. These are all things that can find you product market fit. It's probably a mix of all of them to make something work. But that's, I think, the miss. I just don't think the modern restaurant can have product market fit on 2 days a week and ignore the rest and say, I just don't know why they're not coming on these other days. There are levers to pull, but you have to do something with that space. There's too much rent. There's too much rent tied up in it.
I love unintended consequences. So you may have product market fit Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for example. Sure. But then to as you say, gear yourself up for those 4 days, you actually reduce the quality of the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by having less staff. And then you actually lose customers, because they'll be like, say, I don't know, panoply of delicious bites, whatever the fucking restaurant's called. They go in and they're like, oh my God, that was amazing on the Friday, Saturday. Go on the Monday, it's like there was no staff, it took ages, the food was a bit dodgy. That word of mouth is the greatest form of marketing. And then
without a doubt.
Yeah, so there's almost unintended consequences of not sorting out the Monday, Tuesday.
Well, there's also unintended consequences of closing as well. I know this great restaurant, let's go. You walk down with your friend, shit, it's closed. You go to another restaurant and you might discover another restaurant, or you're just, you've let someone down in that moment. Like it all adds up.
Yeah. Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.